Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. Today we are going to be building my MT1 truck. So we're going to head to the configurator and start building. So right now we start off with a single motor two-wheel drive option starting at $41,520. There's also a dual motor 500 horsepower model starting at $46,919. Now between these two models, frankly, I have no need for a dual motor. I get by in my life with a two-wheel drive vehicle already. So for the sake of efficiency and saving a few $1,000, I'm going to stick with the single motor. I do want to take this vehicle out a bit more than I do my Toyota Camry. So we're going to stick with the single motor for now. The battery comes in two different sizes. There's a standard range, estimating 260 miles, and a long range with 350 miles for an additional $3,900. Between these two, 260 is more than enough for my daily commute and could almost get me through a whole week without charging. But of course, we have to account for some losses and inefficiencies. Now the long range with 350 miles, that's actually a very good range for an EV truck. I don't plan to be towing anything. I just want to use this for some light hauling, coming back from the hardware store and carrying around the family. So with that in mind, I do want to kind of take it out, maybe see some national parks. I think having that little bit extra range would just make it a little bit easier, having that peace of mind, knowing that we have a little bit of extra range. And that paired with the single motor, I'm actually curious to see if that range is even higher, closer to maybe a 380. Now for the colors, starting off with a Blizzard white. White's always a nice color when it's clean, but for me it's just too plain. It just looks like it's more of a work truck. Looks like any other big fleet F-150 Silverado. That's just what you expect. So I kind of want to stay away from that. Let's look at this blue here, ocean blue. Now that is a really nice blue. It's kind of, I'd say, on the darker side, but when you look at from the profile and the lighting here, it almost looks like a Rivian blue, which is actually a bit lighter than it looks in their configurator, but it is very nice. I definitely like it. It's definitely one of my top choices for this truck. Now moving on to this dark emerald. Now from the front, honestly, I'd say, yeah, it looks a little green, but it has a lot of blue in it. And yeah, looking at it from the side, to me it looks like a teal. It's not a bad look, but just green is not for me. So we are going to pass on that one. Now this one I do like. It's sand dune. I love the contrast between this tan sandy color and these nice clean black wheels. I don't expect my wheels to be nice and clean all the time, but I just think it looks really good. Also, there's not many tan vehicles out there, so I want something a little bit different, something that will kind of stand out from the crowd a little bit, but maybe not too much, as this next color that we're going to look at here. Now this sunset orange, I believe this is what the prototype is currently painted in. It's not a bad color. My personal preference, orange just isn't for me. I very much like, I lean towards the blues and grays. I think they just look so much nicer. But, some people love to pop, and this will definitely pop. It's a quirky color for a quirky vehicle. Cold steel. Now this is a really nice color. I really like, it's gray, but it definitely has some blue in there. It does give the truck a much more masculine look. I definitely will keep this one in mind, but it is very dark, and I live here in Texas. I kind of want more of a light colored vehicle, so we'll move on to the next one. Alright, black. You cannot go wrong with black. Black makes everything look better. And again, it does on this truck. It just looks sleek, it looks classy, but again, it's not the color I really want. I would really love to see this in person. I think with these red tow hooks, it gives it, a nice appearance. And lastly, we have this sable bronze. Probably one of my least favorite colors. Maybe if this was a fleet color for the National Parks Department, I'd be fine with it, but for a personal vehicle, I just don't see this as a option that many people would choose. So looking back at my top two is this ocean blue and the sand dune. Frankly, I think a lot of people will choose this blue, and because it is a really nice color, but I want to be a little bit different. I think this sand dune, this tan is just a newer color palette that's starting to come in to other manufacturers, and I think Telo really nailed it with this color, so I'm going to add it to my list. Next is the interior. So we have this blue and gray interior. Looks like a cloth. I believe it's some kind of wool. And you can see it's all on the door panels and on the dash. Wraps all the way around. It does look very nice. I am curious to know how it feels. And the other option here is this amber. Now it looks like a light brown and then some dark brown on the outsides. Again, that wraps the door panels and along the dash. Gives the interior a much more dark look. But some people like. I tend to lean towards black interiors just for ease of cleanliness. But for this truck, with how small this cabin seems to be, I think sticking with a lighter color will make it just seem a bit more spacious inside. Also, I just like blue. Next we have the wheels. So it's going to be coming from the factory with this 4-spoke square design. It doesn't look bad. Kind of reminds me of what Kia's doing. All of their wheels are, they have different shapes in them. They got some triangles. They just got some wild shapes that, they look good. It's a new design trend, and I think Telo did a good job with that here. The other option is this 5-spoke wheel for an extra $1,000, and it actually looks really good. Let's see if we can see it. No, it doesn't stick there. It does look really good, but for an extra $1,000, is it worth it? For me, I'm trying to stick to saving a bit more money here, so I will stick with the 4-spoke. As long as the wheels work, I am not too picky about it. I'd rather spend my money elsewhere. Next up is the accessories. Now, this is where it can get a little fun and a little different. So, starting off, we have a tonneau cover for $1,200. Looks like a 3-slat system. Probably locks with the bed. If you're just going to be running without any cover, like a camper shed, definitely a tonneau cover is a good choice. You may be able to get some cheaper online. Whether they'll fit with the bed is the question. So if you want one, right out the gate, then I definitely option the tonneau cover. But for me, I'm going to hold off on adding that for now. Next is the solar cab roof. Now, I looked into this a little bit. I believe these panels are about 200 watts each, or the roof itself can produce about 200 watts. Now, what does that mean for, how much range you can add or how much energy it really adds back to the battery? The answer is not that much. Even if you park it in the sun all day, every day, the amount of energy it generates, it still takes quite a while to get a return on that investment, which frankly is longer than probably the life of most vehicles. With my utility right here, which is very cheap because we're a part of a co-op, my return on this was looking at maybe about 25 years. That's a bit much. Maybe like 5 years would be ideal. Now, if I lived in an area, in California where utility rates are much higher, then perhaps it may be worth it to get the solar roof. But for me, for an extra $1,500, I just don't see it's worth it. Maybe getting some separate solar panels and maybe a portable power station, just having that to kind of supplement any extra energy needs that your vehicle might need or might utilize. That might be a more cost-effective method, but I'm just guessing. I'd have to look into that a bit more. Moving on to the solar tonneau cover, again, kind of the same issue. I believe that this is also running on a 200 watt system. Now, if you got these combined, it'd be 400 watts, but again, the math just ain't mathing for getting a good return on that. It is a nice feature, but unfortunately, the technology just isn't there to really make these worth the high cost. But if you were to get this, it's $1,500 extra for that solar ability. Again, probably not worth it. And moving on to this camper shell, I think it looks really good, and I am curious to see how it works with the optional third row that they had talked about. But for my purposes, I want to take this camping. I want to go out in the wilderness with it, and so being able to enclose the bed to create a nice sleeping environment where we can utilize the vehicle's HVAC system, because I am a hot sleeper. I think that is well worth $2,000. Now the solar camper shell, it's the same thing again. It's probably a 200 watt system, an extra $1,500 just to add that on, and I just don't think it's worth all that. So what it comes down to is now our price we're looking at is $40,000. Now, is that before or after this tax credit? Okay, so we're looking at $47,500 without the tax credit and $40,000 with the tax credit. I definitely fall within the eligibility for this tax credit, so in my mind, I'm going to be looking at this $40,000 price. So with that, I'm going to get this reserved, and this is the second time recording this video. The first time, the audio didn't quite work well. So if you have any questions or want to let me know what you did for your build, just leave some comments and like and subscribe.